we really choose our path in life? Sure, it feels like we make choices. This is how we experience life. It feels like we decided what to eat for lunch today. It feels like we decided what career to pursue, whom to marry, and so on. But do we really choose? Or perhaps every choice we make is determined by forces that lie beyond our control, or even outside of our awareness? Is our free choice nothing more than an illusion?
And I'm here with mentalist Mark Salem.
Mark Salem is his name.
Mark Salem is the incredible mind reader.
Mark Salem is a mentalist, meaning that he has an uncanny ability to know what people are thinking, and also to somehow communicate to people what to think. We asked Mark to address our class via video and demonstrate to us that often we think that we are making a choice, but really we aren't. Focus closely on Mark as he addresses us through the video screen.
Let us take these numbers, 1 to 4. I'm going to try to project a number 1 to 4 to your mind. We'll see how successful I am. The number that I was projecting was the number 3.
How many of you chose the number 3? Now, if that seemed a bit easy, after all, Mark had a 25% chance of getting it right. Mark has another trick up his sleeve.
Now I'm thinking of a 2-digit number. Both digits are odd. Both digits odd. And not the same. Not like 11. 2-digit number, both digits odd, between 0 and 50, both digits odd, not the same. This is the number I'm trying to project to you.
In closing, we will show Mark demonstrating his skill on a much bigger crowd, but in a way that allows us all to participate as well. Join the exercise as if you are in Mark's audience.
Mark has taken over Times Square to attempt a massive mind meld and prove his super sixth sense is the real deal.
We're going to use what are called Zener cards, or sometimes ESP cards. It's a number of different shapes. One is a star. One is a circle. One is a square. We have the wavy lines. And the last one is a plus sign.
Take a look at these 5 cards again. A star, a circle, a square. We have the wavy lines and a plus sign.
Now I want you all to concentrate on the card that reaches you the deepest. And I'm going to try to see which one you're sending me.
Free choice is sometimes an illusion.
So today we're going to be talking about free choice. And if we really get to choose our path in life. You know the story of this. These guys are on the flight to Israel, and the stewardess on the El Al flight comes to them and says, "Would you like dinner?" So the guy says, "Sure, what are my choices?" And she tells him, "Your choices are yes or no." So, of course, in life it feels like we get to make choices, and it feels like we decided what to eat for lunch today, and which career to pursue, and who to marry, etc. But are our choices really our own choices to make, or is our life predetermined for us? Is free choice just an illusion? That will be the topic of today's class. And this discussion, this question, is something that has been discussed by the greatest of thinkers and by the most simple of people. It's one of those questions that we'll talk in depth. It's also discussed in Kabbalah and in Hasidus. And let's see where we go to today. Let's begin with a very famous verse that really sets the stage. Start right in the front. Mordechai, text number 1, page 208.
See, I have given before you this day life and good and death and evil. Life and death I have set before you, blessing and curse, and you shall choose life.
Okay, so if you read this verse, a straightforward reading of this verse is implying that yes, we are given free choice, and the Torah is confirming that we have the ability to choose which path we're going to take, right? That's what the verse seems to be saying. And in fact, when the Rambam Maimonides is discussing free choice, he quotes this verse, Faith, text number 2.
Freedom of choice has been granted to every person. If a person wants to turn to the path of good and be righteous, the choice is theirs. And if a person wants to turn to the path of evil and be wicked, the choice is theirs. This concept is a fundamental principle and a pillar of the Torah and its commandments. As it is written, see, I have given before you this day life and good and death and evil. Were God to decree that a person should be righteous or wicked, if there were to be something in a person's primary nature that would compel them toward a particular path, a particular conviction, a particular character trait, or a particular deed, how could God command us through the prophets, do this and do not do this? What place would the entire Torah have? And by what measure of justice would God punish the wicked and reward the righteous?
Okay, so as you said beautifully, any religion, not only Judaism, if you believe in a moral system of a person having the ability to choose and to do right or wrong, you have to believe in the ability of choice. That's what the definition of morality is, that we are responsible for our actions and for the choices that we make. Right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, however, we also know that our choices are very strongly impacted by a number of forces and factors that are outside of our control. There's a very famous discussion about what impacts us more, nature or nurture, right? Famous discussions discussed at great length by many different perspectives. Some people will argue that the choices we make in our life are because of our genetic disposition, because of our instincts, our desires, because of our personality. Others will argue it's from the way we were raised, the kind of school we went to, the kind of friends we had growing up, our home. And they both play a role in the kind of person we are, and the kind of choices and the kind of reactions that we have and the choices we make. And so, with all these factors that are influencing our decision making, does this impact our ability to truly have free choice, considering the way we didn't choose what kind of home to grow up in? We didn't choose what kind of school to go to. Didn't choose which co-workers to have. Right? So do you think that affects our ability to have free choice? You say no?
Yes.
You say yes? Okay, good. Carol says absolutely. We have no, yes, and absolutely. Let's get one last choice.
I think it has no effect on our free choice.
Again?
I think it has no effect.
You say no effect on free choice. Okay. Good, we got the full gamut here. Baruch Hashem. So we have a contemporary of the Rambam, a contemporary of Maimonides, whose name was Rabbeinu Avraham ben David, also known as the Ravid in short. He lived in the 1100s. And we're going to soon be discussing a very interesting debate between him and the Rambam, between him and Maimonides. But before we even get to the debate, let us see what he says about this particular question, this particular issue. Text number 3, Barry.
As is known, everything that happens to a person, whether a major event or a minor one, we get a place in the hands of the consolations. However, God gave a person a mind that is empowered to overcome the influence of the consolations. This is the power given to a person to be good or bad.
Okay, so the Ravid's point is that yes, it's true that there are very powerful forces that act upon us. Yes, it's true that there are certain things that we saw growing up or we learned from our friends that have a long-term impact on the way we think and the way we behave and the way we react, etc. But on top of all of that is the fact that our mind is empowered with the ability to overcome our natural instincts, our habits, our fallback mode, and at every given moment it is our choice whether or not to act upon our natural instincts or to overcome and to act properly. That's the choice that we are given, right? So we're not denying that certain things have a big impact on you. Like the famous joke where this guy comes up to heaven. He's in heaven, so they tell him there's 2 lines. One for the men, it's a perfect joke for our new couple. Perfect. So they come up to heaven, and there's 2 lines for the men. One's for the men that wear the pants in their home, that are the boss of the home, and the other one where they're not, where the woman is the master of the home. And the angel asks Solomon to go to the 2 lines, and everyone's standing on the line where the women are in charge. The other one is empty. Finally, one guy goes over to this other line that says, where the men were in charge. So the angel says, what are you doing here? Are you the master of your home? She says, my wife told me to stand there. So yes, there's very powerful factors that sometimes influence our decisions, like a wife. But not like a husband, but only like a wife. But the point is that we have the ability to overcome these natural habits, etc., and to overcome them. In fact, the Talmud says it very clearly. Text number 4, Susan.
One who is born under the influence of Mars will be a person who sheds blood, said Rav Ashi, either a surgeon or a robber or a butcher or a moho.
See, we didn't get into the even deeper. There's nature, there's nurture, there's also your spiritual constellation, the mazel, the stars upon which you were born. So a person is born at a certain hour, which is the hour of the red star of blood. So you have a certain disposition to blood, a certain inclination to blood. Does that mean you're going to be a murderer? No, maybe you'll be an EMT and you'll be a paramedic. You can choose if you'll use that desire for blood to be a butcher in a healthy way, or to be a moel, to be a person who gives circumcisions, or to be a person that inflicts pain upon others. So yes, it's true you have a certain natural inclination towards blood, but whether or how you use that, how you channel that inclination, that's your choice. So you can use that inclination to blood in a very healthy way. Being an EMT requires a certain ability to almost thrive in that kind of environment, but you're using it in an unbelievably positive, amazing, beautiful way. Okay, so that was just setting the stage. So it's clear, and we all, I believe, are in agreement, that in order to believe in a system of reward and punishment, to believe in a system of morality where we have responsibility for our choices, we have absolute free choice. Despite the fact that we have Jewish mothers, we have absolute free choice. Okay? Now, what's the problem? Text number 5, Eileen, famous Mishnah.
All is foreseen and free choice is granted.
All is foreseen and free choice is granted. What do you see in that statement?
Contradictory statements.
Rekiva is saying 2 truths. One truth is that God knows everything that will happen, right? You believe in that? Accept that?
So does he know your free choice as well?
Second thing he's saying is that we have the freedom to choose how we will act. All is foreseen and free choice is granted. You accept both of those statements. So then the obvious question is, how could there be both?
It could
right?
be.
What?
It could be. Because you have the free choice, but he knows what you're going to do.
How? How is that possible? If he knows, how is that, you don't have a choice anymore. If he knows you're going to do A, right? If he knows that you're going to get up this morning and not sleep in, then you don't really have a choice because it's already predetermined in heaven that you're going to do A.
No, because if you knew B, he was going to know you do B.
But the question is, if God knows, then how could you choose? He already knows what you're going to do. You only think, obviously you think you know. Of course you think you know. But it's only an illusion. The question is that it's only an illusion.
It says the time is linear. God is beyond. We think in terms of linear.
Okay, very good. We will discuss that. Very good. Very good. Yeah?
Well, God is testing. He knows that we have that option. He's granted us that option. He's given us that ability. Unlike the angels and the beasts, he's testing us to see what's true.
But so do we have free choice or not? Or is it just a test? It's just an illusion?
No, we have free choice. He's granted us the ability to have free choice.
Okay, accepted. So then how could he know what we're going to do if it's our free choice?
Because he knows our thoughts.
Even though.
But if you can choose, then there's no way for him to know in advance. If it's your choice, how can you know in advance? What you're going to until you choose.
He's omniscient. He knows through all time. It's not necessarily advance.
He wants us to make a choice.
It's true. He wants us to make a choice, and it's true that God is testing us and giving us challenges to see what kind of choice we'll make.
It is also to bring us closer.
It's also true that God knows everything, though, but the two don't seem to really work hand in hand.
The mysteries.
I just don't know, this is the question I mentioned before. This is the question that everyone asks. Every philosopher asks this, every teenager asks this, and there's many answers to this question. But I'm going to show you today that really the answer can be more simple than you think. I'm going to show you the answer can be more complicated than you think. Sounds good, huh? We're going to do both today. So let's start with Maimonides. We have already quoted Maimonides earlier, the Rambam, who besides for being one of the greatest halachic authorities in Jewish history, is also one of the greatest philosophers in Jewish history. Let's see how he answers this question. Text number 6, page 212. Ellen, you want to read another text?
One may ask, God certainly knows all that will transpire. Now, before it happened, did God know whether the person would be righteous or wicked, or did he not know? If God knew that the person would be righteous, then it was not possible for that person to not be righteous. And if you will say that God knew that the person would be righteous, but it was nevertheless possible that the person might be wicked, then God did not fully know it.
Right. That's the question. You understand the question? Are you going to, when you were born, does God know if you're going to be righteous or not? If God knows if you're going to be righteous, then you don't really have the choice. And if God knows you're going to be a sinner, if God knows you're going to mess up, right? So then it wasn't really your choice. God already planned it. You only thought you were making a choice, but really God already knew what you were going to do, so it wasn't really a real choice. Yes?
Yeah.
You don't like the question. It's making you nervous. He's getting nervous. I doesn't like it.
The issue is, does God really foresee?
Does God really foresee? We have to accept that God knows everything. That's one of the basics of Jewish belief.
Right.
Past, present, future.
Well, he knows everything, but does he know, if he knows everything, then choice could be that, because if I'm good, I'm good. If I'm bad, I'm bad. He foresaw all of that.
Right. So if he foresees it, then it's not really a
He
choice.
doesn't want to take it away from us making a choice.
No, it is a choice, though.
It's like if you're acting in a play, if you're an actor in a play and I give you a script, right? So in the play, you officially have this whole dilemma. But do you really have a choice? Or already someone knows what's going to happen at the end of the, you already know the end of the story.
No.
So we'll take Asi, then we'll take Steve, yeah.
What if there's
Ariel, what?
What if there's multiple scripts at once? So like for us, the situation would be making a choice, and we wouldn't exactly know necessarily what would happen.
That's a good possibility. You're saying that maybe God has two backup plans. Either if you do this, I have this script. If you do this, I have this script. But then God doesn't really know what's going to happen. He's not sure which script will play out.
Does it matter?
Yes.
You have the ability to change what was predetermined.
Okay, so what you're trying to explain is that God knows everything, and yet you have the ability to change what God knows. Which means that it's possible that what you will do is not what God knew.
God knew you were going to change.
Which means that God doesn't know everything.
That's free will more.
I understand. That's correct. Free will means that you can say that even though God gave me the natural disposition to be short-tempered, I'm not saying you're saying, and then you overcome and you control yourself. So now God didn't know that God had a script that you're going to lose your temper, and you changed the script. That's free will. But now that means that God didn't know what you were going to do. You did something God didn't expect. Yeah.
I have a little interpretation. We think that we have free choice. That God created us the way that we are meant to be, to think that we have free will, to give us that thing. We may not actually have it, but we think we have.
Very. So you're saying that free will is only an illusion. It's not really free choice.
That would solve a lot of issues.
That would solve a lot of issues. That our free choice is not really a free choice, only an illusion. The problem with that is that then how could God punish you for your choices? How could God hold you morally responsible for your choices when it wasn't really your choice? It was all set up by God.
Because He's like a mother. They give you a blue and a red tie, and if you don't wear the blue tie, they go mad if you don't wear the red tie. Same thing.
Yeah.
You're not wearing the other tie.
Why is there the saying, Kol b'dei Hashamayim Kitzmei Yirat Hashem, everything is in God's hands except the fear of God? So,
Meaning that that statement that you're quoting in English, meaning that everything is in the hands of God except for fear of God, is because we accept that God does not have control over our actions. We have free choice. But we also accept that God knows everything. So how can we have free choice where God doesn't know what you're going to do, and at the same time say that God knows everything you're going to do?
Maybe it's our limited free choice as opposed to God's infinite understanding of what.
God's understanding of us is what we're going to do.
Right. So it's like getting on the right track. In other words, God has a plan of a track for us. So there's a track that we're on. We veer off the track. Somehow God helps us, or through action.
But going off the track, are you saying is part of God? God knew we were going to go off the track, and God didn't know?
Yes.
And that's where God wanted us to go?
Yes. For some kind of a...
So then he didn't go off of his track then? You just contradicted yourself. A second ago you said it would go off of his track, and now you say, no, you wanted to go off the track. Then that's the track.
It is a contradiction.
Of course it's a contradiction. Okay. So let's see how Maimonides answers this question. Okay, let's try text number 7, the answer of the Rambam. Roger, loud and clear so we can all hear you.
Know that the answer to this question, longer than the land is its measure, and broader than the sea, and that many great foundations and lofty mountains hang upon it. But you need to know and understand what I am going to say. We have already explained in the 2nd chapter of the laws of the Torah's foundations that God does not know what with a mind that is distinct from its being, as is the case with the human being, whose being and mind are two distinct entities. Rather, God and his mind are one and the same, a concept that is impossible for the human mind to fully comprehend. Thus, just as man cannot discover and grasp the being of the Creator, so too man cannot discover and grasp the mind of the Creator. In the words of the prophet, my thoughts are not as your thoughts, nor are your ways as my ways. Therefore, we lack the capacity to know the nature of God's knowledge of all creations and all actions. But this we know without doubt, that the deeds of a man are in the hands of man, and God does not induce or coerce a person to do anything.
Okay, who understood what he just read? Yes, how do you explain? How do you understand what the Rambam is answering?
Well, we really are limited in our capacity to understand what God is all about. His mind is beyond omniscience. We can be in awe, we can believe in it, but we really have difficulty grasping it. As human beings, we're flawed. We're creations of man. We're
So you're saying correctly, but so is the Maimonides actually answering the paradox, or just saying that the answer is not answerable? We can't understand. It seems what the Rambam is saying is that God and his mind are one. That's the first thing he says. But that doesn't really answer for us. Just saying that we can't understand how God works, and so therefore the paradox remains unsolved. Really, if you read the Rambam, text number 7, he makes a lot of words there that seemingly are not answering the question.
Well, he's saying that for humans, being and mind are two distinct entities. For God, it's the same. So we're different. I mean, we're obviously different.
Yeah, but you could just say that God has brains beyond us. We don't understand. So is he actually answering the paradox or not, Maimonides?
God does not induce nor coerce a person to do anything.
Okay, who might raise their hands thinks that the Rambam is actually answering and explaining the paradox? Yes, do.
I do. I mean, it's just simple because we're limited. We're just, again, we're finite beings. God is infinite. So for us to grasp how God sees us or how God sees the world, how we're supposed to act, but the Torah is a great blueprint. So I would imagine that Hashem gave us the Torah to use that as a blueprint on how to make the correct choices.
You're not explaining the paradox. You're saying that God is beyond us.
Yeah, that's beyond our ability.
That's not answering the paradox. That's saying it's an unanswerable situation.
Well, that's right. I mean, that's what it is.
It's unanswerable. Okay, fine. So what did the Maimonides to come and make a problem for? Don't bring it up. You know, there's a rule. Lawyers know they never ask a question that they don't already know the answer to. First rule in law. If you don't know what the guy's going to say on the witness stand, you don't ask the question. So why is Rambam bringing up a question? He gives a whole thing that God's mind is not like our mind, and he makes like a whole complicated, the different entities and the laws of Torah foundations.
But he ends
Don't
up,
bring it up.
He ends it by saying that the deeds of man are in the hands of man. So that to me means he's saying that there is free choice.
Yeah, he's saying that there is a paradox. There is free choice, and there is God knows everything. He's saying this both. And we don't understand. So why is he bringing it up? So in fact, some commentaries have an issue with the Rambam even raising the question because he's not answering it very well, seemingly. Look, text number 8. Maverick, you want to read text number 8?
Says Abraham.
This is from the Ravid. Actually, just to give the context. The Ravid I mentioned before as well, Rabbi Avram and David. He was a contemporary of the Maimonides who wrote many glosses and critiques on the works of the Rambam. Here's one of them.
Said Abraham, the author did not act in the manner of the wise, as one ought not to begin something that one is incapable of concluding. He begins by posing a difficult question that remains with the difficulty and reverts to faith. It would have been better for him to have left it as a manner of faith for the innocent, instead of making them aware of the contradiction and losing their minds in doubt.
Okay, essentially the Ravid is saying, why ask the question if you're not going to give a good answer? Why bringing it up? Okay, let me give you my understanding of the Rambam. This is not even from the Kabbalistic. So how I understand, how I've learned, how I've been taught to understand this Rambam. And later on, we're going to bring it back in, although the class actually continues with the Ravid's explanation on this question. But I want to explain to you how I understand what Maimonides is saying. Let's say you're going to a wedding, right? And there's going to be some really good carrot cake and chocolate cake and strawberry cake. And you're also on a diet. Right? So you already know before you go to the wedding, I am not going to eat any of the cake on Ashmorgasburg, right? Or you might know, I'm not going to, but when I see all those cakes, I might just give in. Well, you say, I'm not going to eat. At the moment that you're deciding now, I'm not going to have any cake when I go to the wedding. You made a decision, you know in the future. Does that take away from your free choice when you're standing at the Shmorgasburg? Why not?
Change your mind.
You know what you're going to do. But at the moment that you don't eat from the cake, it's not that I was predetermined you're not going to eat from the cake. Now is your free choice. But it's not like a choice that happened outside of you. The knowledge is of you. So your knowledge of what you're going to do tomorrow at the wedding does not in any way impact your own free choice at the wedding. Because it's an internal knowledge of an internal action. We are not independent existences outside of God. There's God, and there's us, and God knows what we'll do. This is what the Rambam is saying. If you read text 7 again, you'll see this. What's he saying? That we are not a mind that's distinct from God. God is a knower and a known and a knowledge. Us, our brain, is an independent thing from that which we are knowing. But in God's case, and the human brain can't really understand this, but in God's case, we, meaning God, what God is knowing, known, and God, who is the knower, is the same thing. So just like you knowing what you will do in the future does not affect your free choice later on, and you can say, I'm not going to eat the cake today, and then tomorrow you have free choice, and when you do what you were planning on doing, that wasn't because you decided yesterday, but you never took away your choice to change. So too, God's knowing what we will do in the future comes from a knowledge of knowing Himself. And from knowing yourself doesn't take away your free choice. It's hard for us to understand because we don't understand the concept that our knowledge is a part of us. To us, our knowledge is something beyond us. There's us, and then there's what we know. But by God, what He knows is Him. So there is no contradiction. That's how I've understood this statement in the Rambam. But many don't seem to understand that. They say this is too complicated. This is a question that can't be properly answered. And therefore they give a much more simple answer. What I said makes sense, by the way, before I go further? Understand? The knowledge of God and what we will do is not a separate existence outside of Him. It's knowledge of Himself.
Just like God's speech. It was a speech to stop.
But we can understand the speech as a part of us. We'll leave that now. But we don't understand this properly. That's what the Rambam writes. The human brain can't really grasp this because in the human brain, what we know is a separate thing from who we are. But by God, it's one and the same. And therefore, His knowledge of our actions is not a contradiction to our free choice because it's a knowledge of himself, which that's what we are. Let's see, how does the Ravid try and explain this seeming contradiction between free choice and God's knowing everything? Text number 9, Harriet.
Although there is no conclusive answer to this question, one at best gives some sort of answer. I would therefore say, if a person's righteousness and wickedness were forced by divine decree, then we would say that God's knowledge is his decree. And we would indeed have a very difficult question. But because God relinquished this authority and handed it over to the person, God's knowledge does not coerce. Rather, it is like the knowledge of a fortune teller who knows by some other means what a particular person's path will be. The Creator knows how strong the influence of the constellations is at any given moment, and if the person will muster the strength to overcome this influence or not. This knowledge does not coerce the person's choice. All this, however, is not a worthy explanation.
Okay, thank you. So, let me explain to you the Ravid. What is Rabbi Avram ben David saying? It seems very simple. We can call it the fortune teller method. Fortune teller model, sorry. What's a fortune teller model? Let's say, we're going to do a thought experiment. Let's say I tell you guys that JLI trained me in the art of mind reading. The art of mind reading. So I come to the room and I say to Barry, I am going to write on a piece of paper. I pull out a piece of paper and I say, I'm going to write on here a color. I tell you pick out a color, right? And so I go and I write right now here a blank piece of paper. Let's try and see if it works. I'm going to write a color. I'll write it neatly, actually. Okay, what color? I wrote something. What color are you choosing? Blue. Okay, I didn't choose it.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, that's what you were thinking. I just took. But let's just say, for argument's sake, let's just say, I go, wah! And I pull out, I do the whole, the whole thing, and imagine, I pull it out, I go close to the screen, I say blue, right? So what happened at that moment? One of two things happened. Either I could see the future, I knew in advance that you're going to choose the color blue, or I somehow manipulated your mind by the words I would have said if I would know the psychology of, and I would touch my blue tie, it's not blue, but we'll say whatever, you know what I'm saying? I would touch my tie and make your eyes look at it while I was speaking to you, and I would make you think of that color, and I would be able to influence your choice, right? So, in scenario 1, if I'm able to influence your choice and I was able to make you choose the color blue because I was touching the blue keep on your head, which says Barry Holtzman's wedding inside it, right? So then, did you really have free choice? No, I played with your mind without you realizing it, but I did some mental manipulation. But if I'm able to tell the future, so did you have free choice to choose a color blue when I wrote it down? If I could see the future, what am I doing? Am I influencing his choice? I'm just seeing what he's going to do.
But he has free choice at that point.
He has free choice. My knowledge that you are going to choose the color blue is not causing you or influencing your choice. My knowledge is the result of Barry's choice. I'll give you an example. Let's say we get into a time machine and we travel all the way back to July 4th, 1776. And we're standing there in the, whatever it's called, the Hall of Independence or whatever.
Hall of Presidents? Or?
Philadelphia. I was there. When I drove with my family to New York, we stopped in President's Hall with a bell and all that. And we walk in there and they're debating if they should sign the Declaration of Independence or not. Right. And we see, and they're all discussing. And now, at that moment, does John Adams, I don't know if he signed it, does he have the free choice? Does he have free choice to decide if he's going to sign this declaration and possibly go to war with Britain? Does he have free choice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I know what he's going to do. Does my knowing what he's going to do influence his free choice?
No.
No, the fact that I know is because I was able to travel back in time, and so I know what he's going to do, but my knowledge is not causing it. My knowledge is a result of his actions. Mm-hmm. Okay? So with a human fortune teller, we have to scratch our heads and try to figure out, how is this guy able to know what I'm going to choose in the future? Does he have some kind of time machine he can jump back and forth in time and see what I'll choose so he can know what I'm going to choose? Or is it just a guess that he can guess that most people choose a color blue with the numbers, like the number 1 to 37? There's some statistical thing, that's what most people choose. But in God's case, it's not a question at all. Who remembers lesson 2 where we did the flip book? Remember you all have a flip book in front of you? With all those little guys on the bottom, right? And for God to see the future is essentially the same thing as seeing the present. God has a whole book in front of him. We live on page by page, right? If you remember the flip book, go through all the pages. We live on the page. To us, the next page is the next page. It's a linear, so what Mindy was saying before, it's a linear experience. And on this page, I only see this page, and then I go to that page, then I go to that page. But God sees the whole book. So therefore, God can look at any page he wants at any given moment, so he can see, just like I had to go back in the time machine to see what they would decide in 1776, God now can see the result of what I'm going to choose in an hour, or in a week, or in 10 years. Make sense? Text number 10, Sherry.
There is no contradiction in the first place. God's knowledge of the future is the result of his observing the deed that the person is doing. One cannot argue that because God knows the future actions of man, he therefore compels them, because for God there is no before and after, as God is not governed by the laws of time. There is no future in God's reality, rather the whole of time is present to him. So just like our knowledge of the present has no compelling effect, so too God's knowledge is always in the present and is non-compelling.
Okay, so basically, what's the fortune teller model? The Ravid is saying that the knowledge of the future is a result of the choice, not the influence of the choice. As the Tesis Yantav is explaining even more, that in God's case, where he has the flip book, for God the future is just like the present, there is no limitation, no problem. Which means, that you want to boil down to its core, what these rabbis are really saying, is that there's no real fundamental difference between our knowledge and God's knowledge, meaning of the future. The only difference is, meaning they're both coming as a result of the choice. The way God knows what you'll do is just the way I know if you're going to turn the page or not, or take a drink. How do I know? Because I see, and God sees. The only difference is that we can only see events after they happen, and God, who exists outside of the limitations of time, can see events even before they happen. Because before they happen in our time frame. But to God, they already happen, because God sees everything all at once. Again, it's hard to understand how we can see the future before it happened, but to God it happened. Understand? It's a good explanation? Makes sense, you say. Do you think the Rambam would accept it?
Probably not.
Probably not. We just gave a beautiful explanation. Beautiful explanation. We know what you will do. I know if you're going to eat that cake because I saw you eating the cake. So I know that you're going to eat the cake, or that you did eat the cake because I saw and observed it. God is able to observe us doing it before we did it because God is living outside of the limitations of time. But the Rambam wrote very clearly, look at text number 7. If you look back at text number 7, do you think God would accept, the Rambam would accept this explanation of God? What's the Rambam saying in text number 7?
We does not know with mine.
We can't understand God. Here we're just trying to make God like the same thing like a human being. Just he has one advantage, he can see the future at the same time he can see the past. Yeah?
Well, the Rambam doesn't believe in the fortune telling model.
No.
Right. God doesn't coerce. Fortune tellers coerce.
The fortune teller is not coercing.
Well, he's attempting to coerce.
No.
That's it's a trick of sleight of hand. I mean, it could be random, but they're trying to encourage you.
No, there's two ways. I said there's two ways that the fortune teller can know what you're going to do. One is because he's influencing your mind. Right? He's saying the words to make you... Or he legitimately can travel through time. Like when we go back to 1776, like all those movies where people go back in time and they know what's going to happen.
That's mythical. It's not reality.
It's not reality in our world because we're limited by time. But theoretically, let's say we weren't limited by time. it would make sense. God is truly not limited by time.
No.
So for us, it's a movie. For us, it's fantasy. To be able to go back in time and to know the future before it happened to the people that are making the decision.
I think the important distinction here is that, I think it's what he's trying to say, is that God is not coercive. A fortune teller is potentially coercive for his own, no?
You're saying right then you're going, yeah, God is not coercive, and a true fortune teller is not coercive either. A modern day magician who is really pretending to know, but really they're playing with your mind, that's coercive. Yes, that's not a real fortune teller. That's not real. I mean, they're just psychologists that are found a more exciting job than listening to people on the couch kvetching for an hour. You know the joke of the guy that three Jewish mothers are sitting and they're talking about their kids, and one says that my son, I'll say it very quickly, my son's such a good boy, he bought me, I see that condo over there, he bought me a beautiful condo, what a boy. Someone says, that's a boy, that's a son. My boy, he bought me 2 condos, one in Miami and one in New York, and he flies me first class every month, back and forth. The other one says, that's nothing. My boy, he goes to a psychologist in New York City, pays $500 an hour to talk to a psychologist. And the whole time he's there, you know what he talks about? Talks about me. Right, so this mentalist, Mark Salem, he's a psychologist that figured out a more exciting job, listening to people coach all day, so he became a mentalist. But a true, legitimate, theoretically, a real fortune teller is not coercive. No. If we were to go back to 1776, we wouldn't be coercing John Adams or whoever, saying, I know you're going to sign the Declaration of Independence. Okay. Do you think even the Ravid fully accepts this explanation? Look at text number 8. How does the Ravid end off?
What was the question?
Do you think the Ravid, the one we're saying, the one that gives us this fortune teller model, do you think he really truly says this is a good explanation?
No.
How does text number 8 end?
Leaving their minds in doubt.
All of this, yeah.
Leaving their minds in doubt.
To go with faith. The simple people go with
Sorry, not text 8. I made a mistake.
It says 9.
Sorry, no, text number 9. Sorry, text number 9.
It's not a worthy explanation.
All this, however, is not a worthy explanation. Sorry, I said it wrong. Text number 9. The Ravid ends off. This is not a worthy explanation. Meaning, this is a bigger question. The biggest question is as follows. The way we're explaining till now is that basically us and God are kind of the same thing. We both have knowledge that's not coercive because we're witnessing what you will choose and what you will choose. The only difference is that God can see what we're going to choose in the future as if it's already the past. But that implies that God's knowledge is coming from something outside of himself. But that's not true with God. See, by us, that's true. Our knowledge comes from the reality that happens outside of us. But with God,
So is this like with God?
reality comes from God. Right? Isn't that what we've been learning? God's knowledge creates reality. How could you say in truth, you do what you're going to do, and God's an outside observer, and now, because he saw you, now God knows what you're going to do? That's a very simplistic explanation. In truth, all of our existence, all of our choices, everything we do, all of our reality comes from God. Yes? That's a real problem. Okay. So, let's now read another statement of the Rambam. We told Rambam, let's see, let's just read the next one. Text number 11. Myron, you read text number 11?
All existences aside of the Creator, from the highest spiritual form to a tiny gnat in the belly of the earth, all exist by virtue of God's reality. So in knowing himself, God knows everything. God is aware of his own reality and knows it as it is. He does not know with a mind that is distinct from himself as we know. We and our minds are not one. But God, his mind, and his life are one from every side and from every angle and in every manner of unity. For if God were to be animated by a life force and know with the knowledge that are external to him, there would exist several gods, he, his vitality, and his knowledge. One must therefore conclude that he is the knower, he is the subject of the knowledge, and he is the knowledge itself, all in one. This concept is beyond the capacity of the mouth to articulate, the ear to hear, and the human heart to fully comprehend. Therefore, God does not know the creations because the creations exist as we know them, but rather God knows them from himself. By knowing himself, he knows everything, as everything derives from his being.
Beautiful. Let me explain now. According to the way Rambam Maimonides understands God, understands free choice, this answer cannot apply. Because first of all, number one, our knowledge is not like God. Our knowledge comes from human observation. I know you're going to eat the cake because I observed you eating the cake. By God, his knowledge comes from within himself. Why? Because God is a source of reality. God is a source of reality. And yet the Rambam says God created a world where we have to have free choice. Which means that there has to be a paradox. The Rambam is saying you must have this question. You must see a contradiction. If you don't see a contradiction, you're missing something critical in Judaism. Either you don't appreciate the fact that everything comes from God, every act and every decision we ever make is a result, it's coming from God, and you must not, or you don't understand that God gave man the ultimate ability to choose between good and bad. So if you accept both, then you have to have a paradox. And that's why the Rambam insists on bringing it up. Because if you can't brush this aside, both of these seemingly contradictory things are critical to understanding Judaism. You must understand that everything comes from God. You must understand that God gives you the ability, the true ability to truly choose and therefore be truly responsible for your good or your bad. And therefore you need to understand that there is a paradox. You with me? Yeah.
Does this free choice only refer to good and bad?
As opposed to free choice between the carrot cake and the chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Free choice is only.
By the time we finish the class, that question won't exist anymore. Okay?
Because there won't be any cake left.
Because there won't be any cake left. Is there still cake left? Yes, there's still cake now. But,
There's no cake, there's no choice.
We're going to talk about that soon. Okay, let's go deeper. You ready to go deeper? We're just getting to the good. We're just setting the stage for some of the best to come. Okay, so Chassidus is going to tell us that there's a context in which we can understand this paradox of God's absolute being and the fact that we have free choice as follows. Who remembers lesson 1 of this series? Long time ago, right? Long time ago. So I'm going to do a little refresher. I'm going to bring it all back together. Bring it all back together. Text number 12, Neil, was a text that we read in lesson number 1, describing the 2 different perspectives on reality that exist. I'll let Neil read it and then we'll discuss it.
It is written, God is the God of minds. This implies the existence of 2 minds. The first mind is that God is the true reality, and all that is here below is regarded as naught, as it is nothing but a reflection of God's reality. This is how it is from God's perspective. The second mind is how it appears from the perspective of the creations. To them, it seems that they are real and something. They describe the creation of the world as something from nothing, meaning that godliness is nothing, as it is not graspable, and the creations are real and something. Now we say, we concede to you, meaning we concede that the truth is how it is from God's perspective. The fact that the world and all it contains appears to be real and something is only due to the constrictions and concealments, as it is written. God hides himself. It is by means of this constriction that a created thing appears to be something, and these constrictions generate the second mind. Yet the constrictions are only from our perspective. From God's perspective, the constrictions are not real at all. God is beyond these constrictions, and is also the source of these constrictions. So in the end result, God includes both minds. Hence the verse states, God is the God of minds.
Okay, we discussed this at great length in lesson 1. I'm going to give you a brief recap. Basically, there's two perspectives on reality. What's the two perspectives? One is called Das Elyon in Kabbalistic terminology, and Das Tachton, or in English. We called it the created reality and the godly reality. What's the difference between the created reality and the godly reality? The godly reality is a higher perspective, which is how reality looks from God's vantage point, which is that basically, what's the world? Nothing. Where did the world come from? God. God is the ultimate, we say yesh, the ultimate existence, and the world is nothing compared to God. Right? God is the ultimate and the only thing that really exists. And so the entire world from God's higher perspective is nothing more than a reflection of His divinity, of His divine self-expression. What's the lower perspective, the created reality? The lower perspective is that, as we say in Kabbalah, yesh ma'ayin. Yesh ma'ayin means something. That's me. I'm a something. Created from nothing. Now, how can we call God a nothing? It's not that God is nothing. It's just that in my limited, finite mind, I can only understand things that have definition, that have limitations, that have a box, that have an ending. So since God is infinite, and my mind can't wrap itself around the God, so therefore, in my finite, limited mind, God is not a thing. A thing is only something I can color, I can give a shape, I can give a size to, I can explain it. Since God has no shape, He has no definition, He's not a thing. Right? God's intangible. He's beyond our grasp. So we say that we are created, we are something, from our perspective, from nothing. This lower perspective that we think that we are a something and God is a nothing, where does that come from? Tzimtzum, the contraction, the concealment. The concealment where God allowed Himself to be concealed. Why? To allow for this lower perspective to exist where we view ourselves as independent things. Which perspective is true? But both, very good. As text 12 says, they're both true. Why? Because they're both generated by God. The godly reality is true because that's the truth from God's perspective. But God created a reality where we view ourselves as a thing, and God wanted us to have that reality. Okay? Now, let's try and put this debate between Maimonides, the Rambam, and the Ravid, Rabbi Avram and David, into the context of this higher reality, this lower reality. In the lower perspective, which is the fortune teller perspective, how does God know what we're going to do?
He exists without time, so what's happening is when He's creating.
He's observing us doing something. We exist in our minds outside of God. We're a thing, He's not a thing. So in our minds, we're making a choice, and from this perspective, we are obviously we're utterly dependent on God for our existence, but every choice we have is a product of God's desire to grant us freedom, and so therefore God only knows what we're going to do because He saw us do it. Yes?
So He didn't know it beforehand.
But meaning from our perspective, God created a reality where we can truly have free choice because we truly exist in a space that the only thing that exists is us. God's knowledge of us is not real to us. It's not a thing that we can define. However, the Ravid himself will admit to you that that's an incomplete explanation because this is only explaining a lower level of reality. If you were to go to the higher godly perspective, if you go to the higher level of reality, what would you find? We have free choice, but why? Because it's something we can't begin to understand. There's a paradox that is not explainable. There's a paradox that's not explainable because in the higher perspective, in which God is the real reality, there's free choice and He knows everything from within Himself. How is that possible? We can't understand that reality. Which is why the Ravid says to the Rambam, why are you bringing it up? Why are you asking a question from the lower perspective? I can explain that. I'll give you an analogy of a time machine. You go back in time, you're a fortune teller, and if the time machine goes back in time, you can know the future without influencing the free choice. But from a higher perspective, there's no way a human brain that's finite can understand the infinity of God's knowledge. So why are you even bringing it up if it's beyond the human brain to ever understand it? That's what the Ravid is saying. And the Rambam, Maimonides, says, no, you must understand that there's something that you don't understand. Don't walk around thinking, I got it all figured out. You should understand that there's something called a higher godly perspective that's totally beyond you. And then, yes, you're good? Then comes Chassidus, and we're blessed to have Chassidus. And Chassidus comes to show us how living in our lower perspective, this is the higher perspective. Chassidus comes and shows us that living in our lower perspective, living in our finite concealment of tzimtzum, we have the ability to sometimes catch a glimpse, to catch a glimmer, a little ray of this higher godly reality, this godly perspective. And when you are aware of it, it has an impact on you. For example, when you understand that there is something called God's understanding of reality, which is His understanding creates reality. And there's something called true and fundamental free choice, and not a contradiction, although we don't understand what that means, that it impacts the way you make choices in life. Now, what I just said makes no sense, so let me repeat it and I'm going to explain to you what choice really is. In Chassidus, and you'll see how it all makes sense. When you're able to understand there's a higher perspective, even living in a lower reality, living in this world, if you understand what choice really is, you can understand, once you understand that there is a higher perspective, that can help impact the way we make choices. So let me explain that by explaining what is choice. Okay? This course was called Rethinking Everything You Thought You Knew About the Universe, right? So let's rethink, let's be willing to honestly rethink what we know about choice. How do we normally describe a choice? The basic assumption of choice is that I can choose between two things, right? I have a choice. Yes or no, on the dinner, on the halal flight. Or like the joke of the, say another joke. There's this Israeli and Iranian are in New York, they're talking, and the Israelis trying to convince the Iranian, you are living in this dictatorship. Israel is a free country. In Israel, I could go stand in the middle of Tel Aviv, in front of Bibi Netanyahu's house, in front of the Knesset, and scream, Bibi Netanyahu is an idiot, and nothing would happen to me. That raises a big deal. I can do the same thing. I can go back to Tehran, I can stand in front of Ahmadinejad's palace, and I can scream, Bibi Netanyahu is an idiot, and no one will do a thing to me. How do we normally think about choice?
Good or bad?
As an option between two things. Right? We normally think, what's a choice? I have 10 options, I choose one. That's usually how we actually experience choice. But what really is choice? You walk into an ice cream shop, okay? There's 20 flavors to pick from. There's butter pecan pie and banana split and strawberry and blueberry. Okay? And you get to choose which flavor you want. Now what if you walk into an ice cream shop and they only have one flavor? They only have butter pecan pie. That's the only butter pecan whatever. That's the only flavor they have. Chocolate. Only flavor they have is chocolate. From the whole wall, from wall to wall, only chocolate. Is that a choice?
You have two choices.
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Yeah, you have a choice, yes or no. If you want ice cream, you only have one choice. Right. So it's not really a choice. People will think, when you have 20 options, I have 20 choices. And when there's no only chocolate, there's no choice. Let's do this. Let's say you walk into the ice cream shop, the one with the 20 flavors, and you say, I want chocolate. And you guys, I'm sorry, we're all out of chocolate, gave it all out. But you have 19 more flavors to choose from. You can have the butter pecan, you can have the banana split, you can have the strawberry, the blueberry, the potato chip flavor, I don't know, the matzo flavor. You know what I'm saying? You can have 19 flavors to choose from. What?
Chocolate.
I don't go to ice cream shops very often. It's hard to be so, it's hard. I have no idea what flavors there are. I think my girls are to Yumberry. I don't know what they do. Chocolate, crushed up chocolate cookies, whatever. Whatever. So finally, you have 100 choices. You don't have chocolate, so you take the crushed up cookie flavor. Cookie dough, whatever it's cookie dough flavor. Cookie cream, cookie cream flavor. It's cookie and cream, cookie dough, cookie, you pick one. Yeah, you pick one, right? Was that really a choice?
Yes.
If there's only
I really want the chocolate. Look at another question. What if you walk into the store, they only have one single flavor? Chocolate. And what I want is chocolate. In which case did I really choose what to get? What case did I really choose what I wanted? Depends what choice means. If you're convinced that choice means the ability to choose from two options, then in the ice cream store where I got the chocolate, which is what I really wanted, I didn't get the chance to choose it because I didn't have any other option to choose it from. But in the store with 20 flavors or 120 flavors, even though I didn't get what I really wanted, but that was where I had a choice. But if you understand that choice means the ability to choose what you want without any outside conditions dictating your choice, say that again. If you understand that choice means that I can choose whatever I want without anyone else or anything outside of me controlling or limiting or dictating what I'm allowed to choose, then the ultimate free choice was in the ice cream store that only had one flavor. Okay, let me make this now more real. Not ice cream, let's talk about something serious. Marriage. This is more serious than that. Let's say you got it, there was just a story in the news like 2-3 days ago, this Mr. Sherbinin, some Russian oligarch who's been married 5 times. Yeah, he wanted to get married a 6th time. I guess no one wanted to marry him, so he made a whole TV show to choose a bride, and his kids were involved in choosing, and he chose, called Millionaire or something or other. Let's say you got to get married. Your grandmother wants to see you married. She says, yeah, I'm leaving you my fortune only if you're married by the time you're 35. You know. Now it's your 35th birthday is coming up. So you go and you choose. You take 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 30 people. And you choose of all the eligible suitors. You're a Russian oligarch, so you can choose whoever you want. And you choose as someone, you can marry them. That's one kind of choice. Or you meet your soulmate. You fall madly in love. You care deeply for each other. You feel complete and whole when you're with that person, and you marry. You're deeply in love. And your friends ask you, so who are your other choices before you married her? You say, what do you mean other choices? This is my choice. This is who I love. Who did you choose her from? You know 20, you didn't choose between all the different people and you chose her? Do you know how many other women I dated before I proposed to Chana?
None.
The only woman I dated was my wife.
Really?
The only woman I have ever dated. And I'm madly in love with her. Because choice doesn't mean that I had 5 choices and all these ladies were available and I chose this one. Choice means I chose that I felt that this would be the person, be the best person for me for the rest of my life. I could be whole with her. That's true choice.
Yeah.
Sometimes the existence of other options may help you crystallize what it is that you truly want. But the existence of other options is not what creates true free choice. True free choice means I have the freedom to choose whatever it is I want. Whatever I want. Something, whatever you want. There's nothing in the other options to choose it from. Right? Let me give you a story, a powerful story I've heard from my father. It's a very powerful story. A very thought-provoking story. There was a Roman prisoner who was thrown into, they put him into the Colosseum. They gave him a choice. Some political prisoner said, we're going to give you a choice to decide if you're going to be allowed to live or to die. They put him on a stage in front of 2 doors. One door led directly to a lion's den, and the other door leads out to freedom. And he has to choose which door to open. The door he'll fall right to the lion's den, and the door that allows him to go free. And this poor slave is standing, this prisoner is standing there, doesn't know how to do. And as he's standing there, the princess feels bad for this young man. Now she happens to know which door goes to which. And she's trying to like motion to him and get his attention to choose that door. She's like trying to like wink to him and go that way. Standing behind the princess is the court's philosopher, the Roman, the palace philosopher. And he sees that the princess is trying to motion with her head to the prisoner to like that door, not that door. And he says to her, you're about to take away his free choice. Now he can choose either door. And if you tell him which door is the door to freedom, you're going to take away his ability to choose. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Makes no sense. Because what is free choice? Right now the prisoner standing there has no idea what the doors do. That's not a free choice. That's an uninformed choice. Real free choice means he would have the ability to choose which door is what he wants. You can't make a real free choice if you're not educated. Knowing the two options, that gives you the ability to choose what you really want, who you really are, where you really want to go. When you don't know, it's just a blind choice. It's a chance, it's a raffle, that's not a choice. Real choice means, real free choice means, not choice between options. Real free choice means the ability to be free to choose who I really am or what I really want. Without caring about what anyone said, without caring about anything else in the world, no one can stop me. The freedom to choose what I want. If you were to go tell a lion in the zoo, and say to the lion, let's say a famous lion, and go and say, "Dear lion, what do you want in life?" Say, "I want food every single day. I want safety for my kids. I want security. I want medical care. I want no predators. I want no one to hurt me or hunt me." They say to the lion, "Okay, I'm going to give you all of that you asked for in the zoo, in this 20 by 30 cage, The moment you leave the door open, what's the lion going to do? He's going to run. Why? Why would he run to the jungle when the jungle he has no guarantee for food, no guarantee for safety, no guarantee he won't be hunted by predators? Why would he leave the safety of the zoo to be wild in the dangerous, unsecured forest?
Because he's confined in the...
No education.
He doesn't know that he'll do that.
Even if he would know. Even if he would know, the lion at the end of the day wants to choose the ability to be free. A lion by nature is not meant to be caged up in a little cage and stand on a little stone for pictures all day.
That's true.
A lion's core is to be free in the forest and to run and to fight and to be attacked and to fight back. That's who it is at the core. So the ultimate free choice of the lion is the freedom to be free, to be a lion. Yes? Yes. So we talk about us having free choice. We don't mean I have a choice between A and B.
It's the freedom to choose.
Free choice means the freedom to be who I am. The freedom it can be no choices. It can be 100 choices. The choices, the options don't make or break a choice. Sometimes they distract. Real free choice is the freedom to be me, to choose what it is that me really wants. In the beginning of the lesson, we quoted a verse. We started off tonight with a verse. What does the verse say? Moshe is laying down the principles of free choice. If you look at that verse, if you go back to text number 1 on page 208, he said, you should know, God said, I'm giving you 2 options. I'm giving you life. I'm giving you death. Uvacharta b'chayim, the verse ends off. I'll tell you. You go back to page 208, but basically the verse says, God says, I'm giving you option A. I'm giving you option B. And then what does he say? Choose life. I'm telling you what your choice is. I'm telling you, not I'm telling you because I'm trying to control you. I'm guiding you the way a father guides a child. I'm explaining. You have 2 options. But who you are is one choice. Human by nature wants to choose life. This is your choice. This is who you are in your core. Person who wants to have life. Now let's go a step further now. Look at the Rashi, text 13, Mindy. Text 13 on page 222, how Rashi explains these words of Moshe to the Jews. Choose life.
Choose life. I am directing you to choose the portion of life. This is like a person who says to his son, choose for yourself a fine portion of my estate, and then stands him upon the fine portion and says to him, select this for yourself. Regarding this, the verse, Psalm 16:5 says, God is my allotted portion and my cup. You support my lot. You laid my hand upon the good lot, saying, take this for yourself.
Okay, what's Rashi adding to the verse? Here's Mar later tells us. The verse said choose life. Is there something complicated that you don't understand in the words choose life when you commentary? Rashi is giving two commentaries. What are the two commentaries that Rashi is giving us over here? It's good words. What's the two commentaries in Rashi over here? Rashi has two things. First, Rashi tells you a story, an analogy of a father and a son, right? And the father is telling the son, here's your options, here's your choice. And then, in case that's not enough of an analogy, you don't understand, he then brings a whole commentary in the verse from Tehillim, from Psalms, where it says that God, you support my lot. Isn't it saying the same thing twice? Yeah, you think so, right? It seems a little repetitive. No?
No, because I think what he's saying is that, make your choice, but always trust in me, which is God,
Yeah, but what's the difference between the analogy of the father and the son, and then the commentary on the verse of Tehillim where God said, where he tells God, you are my portion. You support my law. There's a difference. There's a beautiful explanation of the Rebbe as follows. The Rebbe says there's one difference between the first part of the commentary of Rashi and the second part. The first one says, what does a father say to his kids? If you look at the words he says to his kids, select for yourself. The second part of the Rashi, in the quote of the verse of Psalms, he says, take this for yourself. What's the difference between select for yourself or take for yourself? David, text number 14, you want to read? David, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Text 14.
These two formulas, select for yourself the fine portion and take for yourself the good lot, are two ways that a Jew can achieve the objective to choose life. The first way is a logical choice, employing reasoning and knowledge. This type of choice is described as select for yourself. There are two paths or portions, each of which has an advantage over the other. Otherwise, we would not call it selecting, and a person chooses one portion rather than the other. The second way is that the person chooses good and life with a super-rational choice. This type of choosing is described simply as take for yourself, as the other portion of the path is not an option in the first place. This is because the ultimate source of the Jew's choice of godliness is the fact that the essence of his or her soul is one with the essence of God, not because of any reason or advantage, but rather this is what the soul in of itself desires and chooses. When a person chooses with this type of choice, anything other than godliness is not an option at all.
Beautiful. It's so powerful. As we go through life, we're constantly choosing between two paths. That's the story of life, right? There's one path that brings us closer to God, and one path that brings us closer to self-indulgence. One path that makes us more refined, spiritual, sensitive, kind, loving, giving, caring, sharing people, and one path that makes us more selfish, self-centered, greedy, etc. Right? That's the story of life. Two paths. As a rule, normally in life, we experience this as a choice between these two options. The giving, the generous option, or the selfish option. The godly option, or the animalistic, the pleasurable option, etc., etc. And it's true that in the lower perspective, in the Das Tachton we talked about earlier today, and in Lesson 1, in the created reality, in the reality of this world, which we can call the logical choice, so then you choose between option A and option B. I like this flavor ice cream, I don't like nuts, I like chocolate, I don't like vanilla, I like cookie, but I don't like cookie cream, I like cookie dough, etc., right? That's a logical choice. I know that I'll be better off if I do the righteous thing versus if I do the selfish thing. I'll feel more fulfilled if I go to shul than I go watch TV, if I go to class and if I stay home and watch whatever's on TV tonight, right? So we make a logical choice that I will feel better going to class than sitting home and eating potato chips on the couch. Especially if you get cake here, so that's for sure worth it.
There you go.
So
Great cake.
you have the possibility of two options, and then you choose which one. That's what it means when the analogy, choose. Choose for yourself. Select for yourself. The father telling his son, there's two fields. This is a more logical choice. This is the advantages of the righteous choice versus the selfish choice. But then you can connect to a higher reality. And you can understand that what is choice really? What is truly choice? Free choice? As we said before, such a good line. Ultimate free choice is the actualization of unadulterated desire of core self. Which means that on this level there's only one true desire, there's only one true choice of the soul. To connect to God. When a person chooses to live, it's not like they had choose between dying and living. Living is your natural choice, it's your natural identity. That's who you are. When the Jew decides to do a mitzvah, when the Jew decides to connect to God, what's he doing? He's not choosing God over his job, or choosing class over TV, or choosing a kosher over a hamburger. He's choosing himself. He's choosing life. He's being true to who he really is. That's the ultimate free choice. That's the ultimate. So the lower perspective is you have two choices, and I choose between this and that. Real choice, we're talking about free choice, is either me or not me. Either I'm true to me, or I'm not being true to me. That's not a choice. Only one choice. Okay? And so that's why if you look at this very interesting figure 6-1, how do we normally look at our choices? Like a triangle, right? Look on page 225. Normally we think I'm in the middle. I got to choose between good and evil. One's more selfish, one's more altruistic. One's more pleasurable, one's more good for me in the long term. But in truth, however, so it's an uphill battle to choose. When you live in the, going back to what I was saying before about how beautiful Hasidus is. If you wouldn't have Hasidus and you'd be talking about what's free choice, you'd be living in this lower level reality, this created reality, and you view yourself as a regular person, and my whole life is an uphill battle to overcome my selfish desires to choose the more altruistic, godly choices in life. Chassidus said, I'm going to give you a chance to look at life from a higher, godly perspective. From a higher, godly perspective, you're not choosing between the good and the bad. You're expressing yourself. You're choosing who you are. You're choosing who you are. And you realize that in every choice we make, in every action that we do, is a chance not just to choose good. It's a chance to reveal and to actualize my true self. Or to fail to actualize my true self. And so with that, I want to end up with a very powerful story. A professor, Velvel Green. I don't know if anyone ever heard of Professor Velvel Green. He's a professor living in Minnesota. He is a big guy in some university. He was at that time, with the story, he was working for NASA. He was helping explore, trying to find life on Mars, I believe. Wasn't born or raised religious. One day he meets Rabbi Feller, the Chabad rabbi in Minnesota. It's a whole story in and of itself. And he has a very, very deep questions on religion and science and how they to go together, and on physics, and Rabbi Feller couldn't explain to him. So he got in touch with the Rebbe, and they had a very, very extensive correspondence back and forth on some very, very deep questions on Torah versus science versus physics, etc. Slowly began to get more involved with Judaism, etc. One day, Rabbi Feller calls him up and says, Professor, I hear that you're traveling to this big conference or whatever, you're going to be flying on this flight with all these people from your university going to this big thing. He says, yeah. He says, I want you to order a kosher meal for the flight. So he says, Rabbi Feller, but I don't keep kosher at home. Why should I order a kosher meal for the flight? So he says to him, it's true that you don't, first of all, two things. First of all, just because you don't keep kosher at home doesn't mean you shouldn't keep kosher. You can start. But second of all, you're going to be flying with all these other people on the plane, all these professors and doctors, etc., for this big convention for NASA. And if they hear professor, and they're all Jews, or a lot of them are Jews, they're going to hear the professor of Elvel Grid is ordering a kosher meal. They'll have a big Kiddush Hashem, be a very beautiful sign of a Jew keeping kosher, and there'll be a very big impact on them. You should do it. I felt like you're crazy, but will it make you happy if I order a kosher meal? So it'll make me very happy. Okay, I'll order a kosher meal. Order a kosher meal. Usually they look better anyway, right? Order a kosher meal. No big deal. If it makes you happy, I'll do it. Get onto the plane, take off. The waitresses start coming around with the meals. Comes in with his not kosher or whatever. He says, sorry, I ordered a kosher meal. What's your name? Professor Velvet Green. Everyone starts turning around. Phew, very nice. Oh, Professor Green ordered a kosher meal. No, Professor Green orders kosher. Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't know. We'll go look for your kosher meal. Anyway, you know what happens? Everyone's getting their food. He's really hungry. This is back in the good old days when they still had like food on the plane. Remember those days? Not that they used to like pay for a bottle of water. Like in the good old days, they used to serve a whole meal. So everyone's eating their turkey, their egg, their chicken parmesan, and they're licking up all the food with their bread. He's starving. So he pushes the bell, and the stewardess comes and says, "My kosher meals." "Oh, we're still looking, Professor. I'm sorry, we're still looking." Then the other stewardess comes. "Are you sure you ordered?" "Yeah, I called." 20 minutes go by. The stewardess comes back to him and says, "I'm sorry. There's no kosher meal on this plane. We looked high and low. We searched everywhere. No kosher meal never made it onto this plane." He's about to say, "Okay, who cares? Give me a not kosher meal. I don't keep kosher." But he can't do that. He just made every stewardess on the plane crazy for 20 minutes looking for his kosher meal. He said, "I don't keep kosher." He can't do that. So now he's starving. Every single person on the plane had a good turkey, chicken parmesan, whatever, and his stomach is growling. And he also, besides from being hungry, he's also very angry. They usually go together, by men, it goes together. When you're hungry, you're angry. He gets very angry. First of all, he's angry at the airline for losing his meal. Secondly, he's angry at Rabbi Feller for getting into this mess. Because of him, he ordered a kosher meal. What did he ever do this for? But he's most angry at
himself for not being true.
At God. Here I am, 35,000 feet closer to you up in the sky, here in the heavens. And first I make it for you. I didn't order a kosher meal for me. I wanted to sanctify God's name. I did it for God. And he screwed me. And I'm here without any kosher food. He's really angry at God. He said, I'm gonna land. He landed at Chicago O'Hare. It's almost midnight. He's starving. Comes to the airport, everything's already closed. When he lands at the airport, like late at night, everything's already shut down. He finds one hot dog stand that's still open with that like big sausage turning on the thing. It's like sizzling and like bubbling. Oh, he can't wait. He's about to go order himself this big hot sausage. He says, first, I'm going to go call Rabbi Feller and tell him what I'm about to do. He calls Rabbi Feller in the middle of the night, collect. I'm going to collect call. Back in the good old days, remember those things? In camp, I used to call my parents collect. So he calls collect, he wakes up Rabbi Feller and says, "Rabbi Feller, I want you to know I'm standing in Chicago O'Hare Airport, and in 1 minute I'm going to buy this big, fat, sizzling hot sausage, and as I chew it and swallow it, with every bite, I'm going to be thinking about you." He says, "Not only that, I'm going to buy together with sauerkraut and mustard, and as it..." Rabbi Feller says, he thinks quiet for a moment, he says, "Professor, you know how many times you asked me to explain to you, what is the essence of Judaism? What is Judaism all about? Now you know your answer. Judaism is about you being in the airport and being hungry and not buying that hot dog." He says, "Feller, I thought you were crazy. Now I know you're crazy. That's not Judaism. You're a nut job. I'm going to buy that hot dog and I'm going to eat it with the sauerkraut and the mustard, and I'm going to think about you with every bite that goes down my throat. I'll be having you in mind." He hangs up the phone in anger. He goes to this hot dog stand to go buy his hot sausage. He's about to pay for it. He says, "I can't." You know what happened? He didn't buy the sausage, and it was the last time in his life that he ever ate non-kosher. True story. Last time in his life that he ever ate non-kosher. Because at that moment in Chicago O'Hare Airport, he only had one choice and only one option. But at that moment, he finally made a choice, and he finally realized that this is choose who I am. At that moment was his opportunity to choose and to discover who he really was in his core. And at that moment, he discovered his neshama, and once he discovered it, once he found it, the choice was done. He never ate non-kosher again in his life.
Very nice.
The last 6 weeks, we've been going deeper and deeper, discovering what the world is, what God is, what evil is. But the most important thing that we discovered is who we are. Who we are in our core is a part of God. And when we understand that, and when we understand that there's a godly perspective on life, that there's our lower perspective, that's only the concealment, that's only the sunglasses. But there's really a higher perspective, the godly perspective. And even though we don't understand it, but we know that it exists, and we come to recognize that the ultimate choice is to reveal that godliness inside us, and every single time that we're faced with this seemingly insurmountable challenge, with these difficulties, these options that are pulling us so we feel torn this way, that way, my animal soul, my godly soul, we recognize that in truth, we only have one real free choice. We only have one ability to truly be ourselves. When we realize that, then we discover not only ourselves, we discover who God really is, we discover the world really is, to reveal God in the world becoming a Mashiach. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Okay.
Lesson 6. Is choice real? 1. Free choice is a fundamental principle of Judaism. Unless a person is free to choose between good and evil, the entire concept of a Torah or divine commandments, or for that matter, any religion or moral system, is essentially meaningless. 2. Our choices are influenced by our inborn traits as well as by environmental influences. Nevertheless, we possess an autonomous mind and will that are capable of overriding these influences and choosing good over evil. 3. There are 2 fundamental principles of Judaism. A. God knows everything that will happen. B. The human being has absolute freedom to choose between good and evil that seem to contradict each other. If God already knows what I'm going to do tomorrow, how is it possible that I will be free to choose what to do? 4. The paradox of divine knowledge and human choice is discussed extensively in Jewish sources, and a number of logical resolutions are offered. The fortune teller model posits that knowledge of a future choice is merely the result of the person's choice, not its cause. Furthermore, because God exists outside of time and the whole of time is an open book to him, God can observe our future actions without influencing them. Maimonides, however, maintains that a true understanding of God's unity necessitates the conclusion that the paradox cannot be resolved logically. 5. Hasidic teaching explains that there are 2 perspectives on reality, both originating from God. 1. A higher perspective in which God is the only true reality, and the whole of creation is but a reflection of God's self-expression. And 2. A lower perspective in which the divine self-concealment creates a reality that is distinct, at least in its own perception, from the divine reality. While our daily existence is defined by the lower perspective, we can also carry a consciousness of the higher perspective. 6. Freedom of choice is experienced on 2 levels. On one level, free choice is the ability to select one out of 2 or more options. But the deeper and truer definition of free choice is the ability to freely actualize the unadulterated desire of our core self. When true choice is exercised, there is only one option, the option representing the chooser's true will. 7. We usually think of free choice as a triangle whose 3 points are our self, good, and bad. The bad choice is typically the selfish option. The good choice is usually the selfless option. This is choice as experienced within the reality of the lower perspective. A higher level of choice is experienced when we recognize that our core self is godly and quintessentially good, and that the choice we face in our every action is the choice to actualize our true self, or fail to actualize it.